Good morning. I'd like to call the Door County Board of Supervisors meeting to order on March 22nd at 9 a.m. Would you please join me in pledge allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
All right, everybody's present except Alexis and Dan.
Yep. Okay, so we're good?
Yep.
Okay. Presentation of the agenda. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Correspondence. There was a number of emails from concerning ARPA funds and help of DC. Anybody else want to add any other public correspondence? Okay. Public comment. Ken?
Sure, so we'll start first in the room. If you'd like to make a comment, you can come back to the lectern in the back. Joe will turn on the sound and we will give you the floor. We allow for 3 minutes. So.
Thank you, Ken. My name is Julie Gilbert, and I'm the new president and CEO for Destination Door County. And I'm here with my colleague, John Jerish. And we wanted to thank you for supporting Travel and Tourism Week, May 1st through the 7th this year by issuing a Tourism Week proclamation, which is resolution 2022-17, excuse me. We greatly appreciate it. And we also wanted to let you know that we're currently working with Ken and we'll be back making a more formal presentation on what Destination Door County is currently doing and how we will be moving forward into the future. So thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Marissa Downs, the developer of the Shoals. I wanted to be here today to express my appreciation to the county supervisors for considering ARPA funding for this critically needed affordable housing development. This commitment of funds will get this project to the finish line so that workforce housing units can be available to residents within the year. And I'm also here to answer any questions when that topic comes up. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm at Jade Court Farm in Southern Door County. We have a farm located between X and J on County Trunk XC. And there are a lot of stone quarries and about 8 large farms that use XC past our farm because they can't use the town roads because they're weight limits. So during the summer, when they're hauling silage on the semis and the manure to the fields, it really gets congested. And it's almost impossible to cross the road. But we understand that. But the trouble is that semis seem to be going too fast, and they're young drivers and they're on their cell phones. We noticed that numerous times. So we talked to Thad Ash, and he recommended maybe we should lower the speed limit for about a half mile there. We're right in the middle. And I think it would be a lot safer. We have 4 grandchildren that are usually around the farm at different times. Our farm is located on both sides of the road and the house is fairly close. It was that way when we bought it. I mean, we didn't plan it that way. So it's dangerous. And I guess we'd like you to consider lowering that to 45 miles an hour for a short stretch there. I think it would be a lot safer. Once the semis go that mile, then they can spread out and it isn't as bad. But when they come in from Kewaunee County, they got to use that road, or they got to go to C and use the J turn on 57, or they got to go down to County Trunk B, which they don't want to spend that time, fuel. So I'd appreciate if we could get that done. Thank you.
Time positions down. We had an open public health nurse position and an open admin assistant position. When we're fully staffed, we have 10 of us. To date, we've had a total of 5 full-time openings occur during the pandemic, and we've oriented a total of 4 new employees. Every vacancy was much more significant during the COVID-19 pandemic than normal times. So I'm delighted to introduce our newest staff member, Admin Assistant April Grossbeyer. This is the start of her 3rd week with us. She's like a breath of fresh air, and we appreciate that she was brave enough to join us right now. Casey Fronda is not here. She's actually on vacation, and she has moved out of public health into the Door County Deputy Treasurer position. She was also an admin assistant up until 2 weeks ago with public health. Casey thrives on being busy, and she certainly embraced her role during the pandemic. Alexis Palmer is our sanitarian, and she bravely came on board just about 9 months ago in the midst of much chaos, and we certainly appreciate her. Megan Lockwood is our health educator, and she joined us about 1.5 years ago. She manages our webpage, messaging, and you've heard her on the radio. She has enthusiastically done everything we've asked her to do, which really runs the gamut. Rachel Jandrin, public health nurse, has been with us just about 4 years. Rachel is nothing short of brilliant, and she has kept us on top of the science and ever-changing guidelines throughout COVID-19. Katie Van Lannen, public health nurse, has been here almost 8 years and stepped up to take the lead on everything related to COVID vaccinations. It's been because of her that our collaborations in that realm have been so strong. And then Sarah Nye is our school coordinator for hearing and vision screening. She's been here 16 years. COVID-19 put a halt to her usual job duties. She's worn many hats in the last 2 years and never hesitates to enthusiastically step up to do whatever is needed. Teresa Mertens is our WIC director. She's enjoying some time off this week. She's been here 23 years and saw that our WIC program continued to serve our community in the last 2 years, despite all the challenges that COVID presented. Teresa's simply very dedicated. And we hope the pandemic is winding down, but whether COVID activity declines or not, our important work continues. We simply shift focus. Public health serves a critical yet often invisible role. A highly skilled, trained, and diverse public health workforce can provide our community with evidence-based programs and services that address community health needs, encourage healthy behaviors, and act swiftly to respond to emerging threats. I encourage you to promote conditions in which these staff members feel valued and where there are tangible incentives to ensure their long careers in public health. And again, on behalf of our team, thank you so much for this recognition.
Hey, Sue, do you want to come back up and just do your report right away? We'll keep you up on that. Sure, please.
Sue did a great job of talking about what all of her team did. What she didn't talk about is her leadership. I can't tell you how challenging the last 2 years have been for that team and for Sue personally, but I just want to take 30 seconds to say thank you. This woman loves public health and our community and what they do. And she put on her best hat or her best hair, because sometimes that was all that mattered. But she stepped up and did things that were very uncomfortable for her, things that she did not want to do, from public speaking to challenging meetings where people disagreed with 50%, or at least 50% of the people disagreed with what she said. Her leadership has been steadfast and amazing. I think you all know she's probably planning to retire soon. We'll say some other nice things about her then, but I wanted to recognize her along with the team because she is the one that kept it all moving. And so kudos to Sue for all the work she's done.
Somebody asked me if we thought COVID was ending and that's why the county board was recognizing us. I hope so. Okay, next slide, please. So you'll recall about 3 weeks ago, the CDC came out with its new community level recommendations. And you'll recognize these hopefully, and they are on our webpage. No matter what level of COVID a community has, it's recommended that we stay up to date on COVID vaccines. And please get tested if you have symptoms. Recommendations for isolation and quarantine have not changed. Going back again to community levels, if the community goes up to medium, we should all consider masking, especially if we have an underlying health condition. And then for high level, it is recommended that everyone mask. I know we're all enjoying that COVID's at a low level. Let's not forget that we need to be prepared as individuals to adapt to more cautious pandemic behaviors again, should our disease activity level increase. Next slide, please. So the color code here is the same as the last slide. Green is low, yellow is medium, and orange is high community level. So it's really nice to see green across our country. If you watch the data, you'll notice that the Wisconsin DHS continues to have different parameters for disease activity level than the CDC. They have, however, endorsed the use of the CDC metrics and are planning to either change or retire their metrics. We do need to keep an eye on the world situation with China and several countries in Europe experiencing significant surges. Next slide, please. So what exactly does the CDC use to determine community disease activity levels? They use new COVID hospitalizations in the past 7 days, % of beds occupied by COVID patients in the last 7 days, and then the number of new COVID-19 cases in the past 7 days. Next slide, please. So let's start with those case counts that we're used to looking at. This graph shows Door County cases since the beginning of the pandemic. And you'll see the most recent surge and how it has come down nicely. The red line is the 7-day average. Just to give you some context, in January, we were averaging 84 reported cases a day. February was just under 10. And now it's maybe 1 a day or less. It's really important to remember that this does not include any at-home tests. They are not reported. We're not expecting anyone to report them, and no one's trying to count them. While it's great to see this graph drop down, individual case counts are less representative of community disease activity levels now. Next slide. Thank you. This is Door County cases since the beginning of this year. So it gives you a better picture of what we experienced in January and coming down in February. The recent data on the variants from the state lab indicates that about 25% currently is of the BA2 subtype of the Omicron variant, and that's the one that is causing surges of COVID elsewhere in the world. So something to keep an eye on. Vaccines do offer protection against this variant subtype, but if you've had a recent infection with Omicron, you will have good protection against this subtype. This is hospitalizations in Door County residents. The CDC uses the data they receive directly from hospitals. This is our data, number of hospitalizations since the beginning of the pandemic, and you can see January and February each had 23 hospitalizations of Door County residents. So far in March, we've had only 3. Total deaths since the start of the pandemic in Door County residents is 59. And several of those have been added to our count in recent weeks. Please know that death data can be delayed weeks up to months at times due to processing of medical reports at the state. Next slide, please. This is an indication of COVID-19 hospitalizations. This is from the state website. And you can see it's coming down. The orange is hospitalizations and the darker color is ICU hospitalizations. Next slide, please. This is not something the CDC uses, but this is another indicator that we've begun to look at more closely of COVID activity level in our community. So wastewater surveillance has been monitored since the beginning of the pandemic. It is used for early detection of COVID within a community. For people with COVID-19, the virus can be detected in their feces shortly after they're infected with the virus, even before they experience symptoms. So by testing wastewater, we can measure the amount of the virus and see whether levels are increasing or decreasing and help us to know this can serve as an early warning sign within our community. The nearest wastewater that is currently being monitored is Green Bay and De Pere. So this regional data is definitely helpful. While their data doesn't immediately reflect our levels in Door County, it can be an indicator for us. You can see over on the top right, that is the wastewater concentration. And it's leveled off, but a couple weeks ago, there was a bump up. So something to keep an eye on. And all of this data is found on the Wisconsin DHS webpage, if you're interested in following. COVID vaccine. So overall, 64% of population across the state has received one dose of COVID vaccine, and Door County's ahead of that at 78.6%. And you can see the age groups broken down there. 65 plus has over 95% of folks have received at least one dose. And then the youngest age group has the least percentage. And last slide, please. They also have added booster dose data, which is really nice. Across the state, a third of residents have received a booster dose, and in Door County, we're ahead of that at 46.8%, but we certainly have some work to do on that. We continue to offer vaccine appointments weekly on Tuesday afternoons, and we accept walk-ins. Please see our website for our schedule. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Sue. Any questions for Sue? Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Okay, we are going to move to another special report with Dr. Raff, NWTC.
Yes. Do I do the mic? Joe.
Morning, I'm Jerry Warwick. I'm the representative on the NWTC Board of Directors. This is probably out of order before I go forward. Reflecting back on my past life and what I just heard, I too would like to echo my sincere admiration and thanks to Sue and Jim for all the hard work they did this past year. I can't imagine. I got out of the business just before it started. I saw it coming, you know. No, but I tell people I was so glad I retired when I did. But I think their podcast that they did was outstanding. I thought it in the beginning of the whole COVID thing, the podcast allowed people in the county to phone in and get the right information on a very timely basis, and they carried that on throughout years, months and months and months. I think they still are doing a podcast. So, and often I'd be driving down the street with my wife, and I'd say to her, I am so glad I don't have Sue Powers' job. That has to be the worst job in the community right now. And so personally, from my background, I want to echo my appreciation to her and her department for all they did this past 2+ years. So congratulations to them. So we're here to do our usual annual report to the county board regarding NWTC. I don't like to reflect on something which occurred just within the last month that I think you should be aware of. I don't want to get into the politics of it, and I know Jeff doesn't want to get into that because it's a board issue. We just had the reappointment meeting of the NWTC Board of Directors,
a few weeks ago. Just so you understand, I just got reappointed for another 3-year term. Just so you understand how it's organized, it's chaired by the chairman of the county board of Brown. And the way it's set up, because of the population, that person and only one other chairman of the, how many counties do we have? Six and a half? 6.5 counties. I don't know how you get a half county, but anyway, 6.5 counties make up the nomination committee and appointment committee. They meet once a year. The way it's set up is the chairman, which is the county board, the chairman of the Brown County, and only one other person has to be there to make a quorum. Thank you. When you get old, brain goes. It makes a quorum. So at this last meeting, the chairman of the Brown County made a statement that he wanted to reorganize the appointment process to the NWTC board. The way it currently is set up is that Brown County, because of their population, gets 3 members to the county, to the board. And then the other remaining 6 come from the surrounding counties, Door and the rest of them. He said he wanted to change that and he wanted to put together, he was going to call a meeting later this year of the chairman of the county boards and change the process to put it by regions. Now, if you get into regions where you're no longer following the lines of the county, that gets into one man, one vote rules that came down from the Supreme Court a long time ago. You just can't now arbitrarily draw regions. My concern is that, and the reason I'm letting you know this is my concern, if that goes forward, then the likelihood of Door County ever having a person on the NWTC board would be remote, because since Brown County has 47% of the population, 61%, thank you, 61% of the population, they would easily get vast majority, if not almost all the board of NWTC, and there'd be no representation from the outside rural areas, because really it's important for the outside rural counties to be able to give their point of view, especially what's going on in their counties with regards to NWTC. So I'm just bringing that to your attention. At the last meeting, he mentioned he was going to be calling a meeting of the nominating committee or the appointment committee later on in the year to discuss reconstituting and reorganizing that group. So I'm just bringing it to your attention. I'm putting in my own 2 cents worth, because I think that could be very detrimental to the way the rural counties in the metropolitan Brown County area are represented. So I would strongly recommend that it stays the same. The Brown County gets 3 based on the population, and the rest of the counties get 1, which is the current makeup. So therefore, the makeup of the count of the NWTC board is 6 and 3. So anyway, that's all for politics. As regard to NWTC, Jeff will give you a great update. It's been as is the case here, and we just heard about it from Sue Powers. It's been a very interesting 2 years now at NWTC with COVID. NWTC responded to that by going to remote learning, and then having continuing those on-site classes, because if you were a welder, it's very difficult for you to know how to weld in your kitchen on a monitor. And so a lot of things are ebb and flow and changing, and but I think NWTC was up to the challenge and did a great job. Issues I think you're gonna hear today from Jeff. One of the big issues is a declining enrollment across the board. People went home for COVID and then the students didn't go back. There's been a decline in enrollment going back for a few years in all the technical schools and in colleges, also now in the 4-year schools all across the United States. I think that's a big issue that you need to be aware of, and that right now I don't know what the solutions are, but it's one that keeps coming back to us and coming back to us, because if we look in the future, we're going to need all these men and women trained to do all these various technical jobs and also get prepared to go into the four-year schools too. So I think Jeff will talk about that. So as a whole, though, I can say that we've come out of COVID and ready to go back strong as ever, and looking forward to listening to the communities, listening to businesses, what their needs are, and what type of technical skills are needed for their staff in the future. So Jeff Raffin, President of NWTC.
Thank you, Jerry. Jerry's been a very faithful and thoughtful and vocal member of our board, and we've much appreciated that. So I certainly would encourage you to always feel free to contact me, but also feel free to contact Jerry. As Jerry mentioned, we've all been weathering the last 2 years. I think it's been at least 2 years since I've been in front of this board. Before I get started though, I want to introduce to you a few members of my staff that might give you some ideas and questions you might want to ask. Dr. Rogalski is in the back. Dr. Rogalski is the Vice President for Learning. So everything that has to do with the faculty and the teaching, she is responsible for. Dr. Simpson, she is responsible for all of our regional learning centers and as well as the Sturgeon Bay campus. And she's responsible for all of the services that we're providing to students to make sure that they are able to come and stay in our college as they go through our education. And certainly last but not least is Dan Minchev. Actually, Dan's been up here a number of times. He's our Chief Information Officer. I know he's worked with some folks here in Door County on your issues regarding expanding broadband. So we still haven't figured out a way in which to dissolve all of the rock that's under your soil, but we continue to work on that. As Jerry mentioned, we along with the rest of the country, experienced significant loss in enrollment. Across the country, community colleges such as ours lost about 13 to 15% of their enrollment during this pandemic. In particularly, they lost a lot of male enrollment and a lot of minority enrollment. We experienced the same thing, not quite at the level that the country did. We were down 7%. And currently we're down about 3%. But nevertheless, that's a significant problem for us from a revenue standpoint because a portion of our funding obviously comes from tuition. But more importantly, the issue that we're concerned about is where we're going to get the trained and educated workforce. We are experiencing in part, clearly, a very strong economy right now. When you can get out of school and you can go out and get a job for $15 an hour, that's very attractive until you get married, you have a house or you start to, do things. And so then, we're concerned about the education of those folks because they haven't earned the credentials yet. We are also recognizing that businesses and industry are telling us we need people now, but we also need trained and skilled people. So, there's this tension that's going on. And so as a result, we are continuing to look at ways in which we can provide education to our students and at the same time have them be able to work, which means whether it's programs we call like Earn and Learn, where our relationships we create with employers, where employers allow their students to go to school some of the time. A lot of education is occurring at the workplace through corporate and training and economic development. But nevertheless, I think we are challenged to convince folks about the importance of gaining that credential for their long-term support of their family, their quality of life and their career. We do a lot of work with our local school districts in terms of also passing that message along. And one of the things that's happened over this course of this period of time, we've significantly increased the amount of dual credit students can earn. Right now, we have about 200 students in your school districts, and the ones right here in Door County. They are taking about 2,000 credits, which is worth about $300,000 when they use those credits and come. Now they can come to our college, or they can also go to a university. They can generally take those credits just about anywhere that they want. Part of what the other exciting thing for us is that it appears, and I've got my fingers crossed, but it appears that we will have approved by the Board of Regents of the university system the authority to offer the Associate of Arts and the Associate of Science for transfer. About 20, in the last 20 years, and excuse me, last 10 years, we've gone from 5% of our students saying they're coming to NWTC in order to continue their education after they leave, to 20% of our students saying that. And so they've been trying to make that work all along. We have now finally arrived at an agreement with UWGB and UWO, but UWGB is primarily where our students go, to accept the associate degree as students start at junior status. We also have 20 of our occupational programs that will transfer into UWGB and the junior status, including our engineering technician programs in electrical, mechanical, and environmental. So we've made some significant progress there. And we're certainly looking at this continued progress that we will be offering once this is approved by the regents. Essentially what we've done is we've been able to create a pathway of education that is probably about as seamless as we can get. There's always work to be done for students really moving from high school to NWTC to the university system. So for those, allows students really to at any point in time gain a credential, leave, come back, leave, come back as they pursue their learning throughout their lifetime. I will also say that one of the areas that we know we are experiencing significant shortage at the moment. Actually, every occupational will say, every employer says they have shortages. One of those, however, is in nursing. We run nursing assistant programs at all of your schools, all of, Sebastopol, Southern Door, Sturgeon Bay, Gibraltar, and Washington Island. But we are in the process of expanding our part-time programming in nursing, nursing assistant practical nursing, and the associate degree in nursing in response to the significant shortage that currently exists in that area. I would also tell you that we, during this pandemic, switched over to 8-week sessions. We have completed that now. So now when you come to the college, you will take 2 courses, 3 at the most, but usually 2 courses for 8 weeks, complete those 2 courses. Then you'll move on to another 2 courses in 8 weeks and complete them that way, as opposed to taking 4 courses or 5 courses over a period of 15 weeks. That has been demonstrated, and we've seen that result of increasing the completion of courses. It allows students who run into life barriers and have to leave and come back in much sooner. Oftentimes what we'll see is a student, something will happen and they will say, well, I've only got 2 weeks to go, so I'll finish this 8 weeks and then I'll take the next 8 weeks off. So we've seen increased course completion. We've seen increased number of courses taken. And with this added flexibility, it has allowed students to start at multiple times during the course of the year. So we've been very pleased with what has been happening there. We continue to offer our wraparound services, everything from housing assistance to we have a food bank, we provide clothing, we provide emergency funds, The last thing we want to have happen is a student runs out of gas money and misses a couple of classes, and then next thing you know, they say, well, I'm too far behind. So we continue to do that. Our foundation has raised money that allows us to do that. We have actually been recognized for our wraparound services and our changes over to 8 weeks nationally. We received the Leah Meyer Award, which is the highest award in the nation that you can receive. One college a year gets it. We received that. We are a leader college and Achieve the Dream. And we've been recognized by the Bellwether for the programming that we have that is looking forward. Now we did, we're not in the business of earning awards, although it's really nice to get the validation. But one of the things that those awards do is they make us much more competitive in achieving and getting grants. For instance, we just got our second Title III grant for $2.2 million that we will be using over the next 5 years as we improve the content of what we're delivering in our education. We also just received $1.2 million, the only college of the 16 to get all of the money that it applied for from the state through its competitive grants. Number of things that we're doing as we look forward to the future, and as we try to deal with the issues of getting more students to enroll, we are also recognizing that industry continues to change and we need to respond to that. Certainly, we are doing that through our efforts with Industry 4.0, which includes focusing on data analytics, focuses on additive manufacturing. We're also introducing augmented and virtual reality in our classes. And then in the healthcare field, we just started our echocardiogram program. We have a telecommunications program where we're training people how to climb those towers. We're doing that in partnership with Insight. And as I mentioned, we're expanding nursing and we are continuing to develop our biomedical technician program. We did receive a lot of federal money. So that certainly has helped. The idea was, of course, by the feds was that they gave us money, hoping that we would use that money both to help and support our students, but also to avoid laying off staff and faculty as enrollments declined and then hopefully come back. So far, we have distributed to students about $6 million. We have about another $2 or $3 million to continue to provide to students. We will, of course, continue to do that. That money needs to be spent with the students. And then we've used the other money to overcome probably another $8 million to overcome lost revenue. And we've actually developed some programming that will better serve our rural areas, including establishing a mobile trainer for EMT and for fire. So we can actually take the entire classroom out in our vehicles and provide that training. As you know, we have a campus here in Sturgeon Bay, and we have a campus, what we don't call it campus, we call it Learning and Innovation Center in Sister Bay. And both of those have been doing well, although Sturgeon Bay also experienced and continues to experience the challenges in terms of enrollment. One of the neat things is that we are in the process of signing our agreements with Bay Ship and are going to be the primary trainer for Bay Ship as they are expanding in response to the work that they're doing for Fincantieri and Marinette Marine in general, as well as, of course, all the work they do with the lake ships. And that will provide some significant opportunities to the population, but also make good use of that, the campus. I have included in your packet a one-page sheet on Sturgeon Bay, and then there's a one-page sheet on the Learning Innovation Center. I'm going to do you a favor and not read those to you, but I would certainly encourage you to take a look at them. The Learning and Innovation Center is a little bit different than anything else we do. It's a shared kitchen. We got about 9 people using that kitchen. Also provides co-worker space. So if you are co-workspace, a lot of times those smaller companies up there, they just need a place to go, to use a copier, to use a computer, to make some calls. And so they rent office space from us for maybe just a day a week or maybe a day every 2 weeks. And then we have a number of events that we run up there, training and education events as well, that has been well received. The rest of what's in this packet, if you take a look at it, explains a little bit more about the 8-week advantage, what our goals are. This will tell you everything we're doing in the high schools throughout the district, but and all of the ones that are here as well. And then we also have included with this the basics of our budget. One of the things that has happened, of course, over time, 'cause I've been here 25 years, so I've been here all of the time that we've struggled with the way in which we're funded. We've actually flipped the way we're funded. We used to be funded by property taxes by about 2/3, and then the state by, I don't know, about 20%. That is actually flipped now. It's most of the funding we receive is from the state, about 20% from property taxes. So that is, in my opinion, a fairer system, although I don't know if I'm really that excited about being dependent on the state all the time for the funding we receive, but nevertheless, it's certainly a better position, I think, for places that are so property rich, such as Door County and Florence County is another one. But we continue to be very parsimonious, if you will. Of the 16 technical colleges, we have the lowest property tax per FTE, per full-time equivalent student of the 16 technical colleges. And overall, we rank the 3rd lowest in terms of overall operating costs, even though we are the 3rd largest institution in the technical college system. So if I may say so, we do a lot with the funds that you have. Our board makes sure that we're making good decisions. This budget process that we're going through for this coming year is going to be particularly difficult again, because we're still dealing with a decline in enrollments. We're down 3% right now, I said. And we're faced with all the inflationary pressures that all of you are dealing with. But we've gone through and we've identified significant places, in a few cases eliminating some programs that are not performing at a level that we think they should perform. So I would be glad at this point to answer any questions you have. I realize you've been listening to people talk to you now for almost 60 minutes. But I certainly do appreciate all of the work that you are doing and what you had to do in terms of working us through the pandemic. Fortunately, we never closed completely. But as you can imagine, we had lots of people who had different opinions as to what we should or should not be doing.
Any questions? Megan?
Thank you. I have major curiosity over the shared use kitchen and what that looks like, because the buzz out on the street still is that we don't have anything like that in Sturgeon Bay or in Door County. And here we do. So I was surprised to see that and happy to see it. What are the criteria for being able to use that for small businesses?
We do that primarily in Sister Bay.
Okay.
You just go there and say, I need to have this space. We charge a nominal fee and just talk to the director there.
Awesome. Do you know offhand what the fee is?
No, I don't.
No?
I know,
Okay.
but it's nominal. We're not
Okay.
in profit-making business.
Is there a possibility of something like that happening on the Sturgeon Bay campus as well?
I think there is,
Okay.
especially if we think that works. And we are currently looking at our Sturgeon Bay campus and trying to figure how can we best use that campus. We don't think we're using it as effectively as we possibly could. The population here in Door County is so dramatically different, particularly if I look north of Sturgeon Bay versus south of Sturgeon Bay. And a lot of the kids that are south of Sturgeon Bay just didn't go to Green Bay. So this is an area that we are really focused on in this coming years. What's the best use of the facility?
I'm a former student. I had to take a semester of pre-nursing before I went back for my master's, and it was a fabulous experience.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I had to search out. And I think it was after Palmer Johnson closed, because I'd been with them for a decade.
Mhm.
And there was the pairing up with the job center at that time
Yeah.
that was really beneficial to getting me in there for that. So maybe there's, it's possible that there's another market out there other than just the kids,
Oh, well,
us big kids,
well,
us older kids.
yeah, for sure. Actually, about 40% of our population is the kids,
Mhm.
if you will.
Yeah.
And the other major portion of our population is the 25 to 40-year-olds.
Mhm.
And so that's why, frankly, the 8 weeks is easier to use for adults. That's the population that, especially, that they're coming back, need to be educated, re-educated, upskilled. When the economy softens, that
Mhm.
number really goes up. So as an institution, we don't want to get, we want to be the right size, but we also need to be in a position to respond when that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Of course, we never know, but
Well, with our childcare initiatives, hopefully more people will be able to return back to higher education.
yeah,
too.
right,
So,
right.
thanks.
Susan?
Speaking of big kids, you used to have a program called Continuing Education, which had very old kids in it. And I'm wondering if that still exists.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is that we had what we called avocational courses. They weren't credit bearing, and they could vary anything from things like painting to how do you use your computer. And we backed away from a lot of that. It frankly was a financial situation. We were losing money, and it really wasn't what we saw as part of our core business. I think, and this is something we're looking at right now, we would like, my idea is, and you can tell me if it's a crappy idea, I really would, that would be great. I think we can run a set of courses that I would call life skill courses. They're not so much avocational, but they would be things like, how do I use my computer? How do you forget the computer? How do I use my smartphone? How do I, I need to just do some I just need to stop that drip that's coming out of my faucet. How do I do basic plumbing? Or, how do I, do just minor repairs around the house? How do I manage my budget? And interact with my bank, which now I can interact in several different ways, but I'm not sure how that works. So I think there are a set of what I would call life skills that we can and should be offering. They won't be free because, but I think they will be reasonably priced. So that's what we're working on at this point.
That's great. Thank you.
Nissa?
Thanks. Oh, okay, Mom. There's one thing in the packet that I was really happy to see about the transitioning of high school and getting dual education, which was the disability services. A lot of my son's friends have been going into that, and it's something that they definitely look forward to, the idea of going off to college, because they hear their peers talking about it, but that's not necessarily all of their futures. So I'm glad to see that, because I'm not sure how much the community knows about. This has definitely become something that they all talk about, they all want to do, they all are interested in. It's not something my son's going to be doing because the independence thing, but I know there's a lot of the kids that, I run into them and they tell me, I'm going to start college soon. And it's definitely, it's the normalcy that they love to tell anyone who will listen that they're going to college soon, because that's what they hear from the other kids their age. So I'm glad that's in there, because I'm not sure how much the general community knows that this is offered. And it's an amazing program that I'm happy to see you included.
Yeah, thank you. I like to think of our college as being the college of first choice for everybody, but certainly as I think we as a community do a better job of educating our kids that have different abilities, that we do, but more and more of those kids see college could be in my future, or gee, I could go to college, or I want to go to college, even though I think I can't. So that's one of the things that we've really focused heavily on is providing those opportunities for those students to do that. And one of the advantages to offering dual credit, frankly, in high schools is it also convinces some kids who thought they never could go to college, could in fact earn credit for college. So.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, sticking with our jumping around the agenda, we're going to move to the proclamation Travel and Tourism Week, May 1 through 7, 2022. Susan.
I would like to move that we approve resolution number 2022-17, proclamation Travel and Tourism Week, May 1st through 7th, 2022. Are you wanting that to be read or yes? Okay. To the Door County Board of Supervisors. Whereas travel matters to the nation's economic prosperity and its image abroad, to business and business wealth, and to individual travelers. And whereas travel to and within the United States provides significant economic benefits for the nation, generating $1.5 trillion in economic output, including $680.3 billion spent directly by travelers in 2020. And whereas travel is among the largest private sector employers in the United States, supporting 11.1 million jobs in 2020, including 6 million directly in the travel industry and 5.1 million in other industries. And whereas travel spending directly generated tax revenues of $112 billion in 2020 for federal, state, and local governments, funds used to support essential services and programs. And whereas direct tourism spending in Door County totaled $304.2 million in 2020 and generated $32.5 million in state and local tax revenue, while supporting 2,743 jobs and generating $80.4 million in employee wages. And whereas international travel to the United States is one of the nation's largest single export industries, travel generated $83.3 billion in exports in 2020, creating a travel trade surplus of $35.1 billion in favor of the US. And whereas leisure travel, which accounts for 4 out of 5 domestic trips taken, spurs countless benefits to travelers' creativity, cultural awareness, education, happiness, productivity, relationships, and wellness. And whereas travel is a catalyst that moves the county, state, and national economy forward and are essential to get our economy moving again following the impacts of the pandemic. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Door County Board of Supervisors does hereby support and promote May 1st through 7th, 2022 as Travel and Tourism Week in Door County, and urges the citizens of Door County to join in this special observance with appropriate events and commemorations.
Thank you, Susan. We have a motion and a second by voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We are going to take a 10-minute break and come back at 20 after.